Okay, here we're going to be looking at modelling an answer for Unit 1, Paper 6EC02. So this is looking at microeconomics. I've chosen the paper here January 2012 because it's kind of still topical, looking at the housing market. And I've got this in terms of our look at it. So for paper 1, you have to think here that microeconomics tends to be marked more at AS level, especially on 1 mark. So you need to be careful about picking up these penny marks, and also perhaps getting a little bit more practice in terms of not just simply evaluating with time, but spelling out in evaluation why there might be time lag issues. Classic kind of elasticity discussion, for example. So if we look at the first question on this paper, we reference to the last paragraph of extract 1. Explain why house prices fell in September 2010. And it says, illustrate your answer with supply and demand diagram. So 6 marks. So you might be thinking, how many marks to the diagram? 3 marks. Doesn't look like there's a lot you're going to need to write there. So that's what you want to be thinking about there. So I want you to look at the last paragraph of that exam paper. Good idea to get it up at this point, or look it up in your pack, to think, well, what is in that last paragraph that could be affecting house prices? Okay, so if you look here, you might want to pause at this point and have a careful read of this extract 1 and see what issues come out. Having paused there, then you'll see that this is the sort of things I picked up. Sort of green, as these are the possible points that we could look at. So again, you might want to pause to have a careful look at this. And then think, well, how could I use this data to basically pull out more what is being said there to answer the question. So again, you might want to pause here and think, well, what would I pick there, and what would match up against the data? Where are there practically numbers that you might be able to use? Again, pause here. And this is a modelled answer. So you can see in terms of making the points, if we return to the question, you're looking here at A. So explain why house prices fell. And we can say rising unemployment is my point. That meant deteriorating consumer confidence. Here's some data. That's it. Okay, 3 marks easily picked up. Then you need to explain this, obviously, using the if-then-so approach and using a diagram. So it's a good idea to link this explanation to a diagram. Don't just drop the diagram in here. So have a go at pausing here and showing, using that supply and demand diagram, why house prices fell. And this is what I've done. So you can see I've got still my 3 marks here. I've kind of got a bonus mark in to say, basically demand will shift inwards. So again, you might want to pause and have a careful read of this. The yellow is showing analysis. The blue is picking up on use of data. If without the diagram, this would be 4 marks at most to be capped there. And here's a simple diagram to show this. You can see I've used economics online. It would be nice to maybe have used the data here. There's a possible bonus mark. If I haven't referred to date numbers in my written response, you could put a number in here to use the data to show how much house prices fell. Was it something like 3.6%? So be careful to label your diagram. Start the supply and demand diagram. There's 1 mark there. Show the shift, 1 mark. And please show the changes in the equilibrium prices. Students often forget that one. And there's my annotation, yes, 3.6 marks. So this is what we're saying. Make sure you label these P1, P2, Q1, Q2, however you want to do it. Okay, so let's look at 10B. You can see I highlight pink for evaluation, assess here. So how would we break this down in terms of 8 marks? We've got possible use of data, likely impact of falling house prices on house building firms. So that's what we're looking at, is point, explain, exemplify, evaluate. If you do that twice, you will pick up 4 marks. Times do it twice is the 8 marks there. So maybe 1E, evaluative point, or it might be 2E, and you've done the job there. Or this is how the examples call it. So look at that data then. Can you find 2 marks, 2 bits of data that show this impact, right? Assess the likely impact of falling house prices on house building firms. So you will need to get the exam paper in front of you. We'll have a quick glance over here. We're looking at extract 1 and figure 2. So we've already looked at extract 1. You may want to pause and have a look there. And we're looking at figure 2 here, which is the interesting one, I think, because it's got more numbers here that we could play with. Like these two are falling very significantly in their share price. Not all are they? Okay, so this is what I picked up. I picked up a bit from figure 2, which is one I mentioned, and extract 1 showing builders' profits and employment has suffered. So there's a couple of marks there picked up. I am highlighting in red when we're showing marks. So the next thing would be to say, well, develop this then. Why has this been the impact? And it's good and analytically explaining to use that if, then, so approach. So maybe you want to do that now and pause here. Having done that, this is what I came up with, and you can see how I've got the if, then, so approach there. You can see I've picked up 3 marks here, 3 marks there. I might pick those up even without having to write so much, but have a read of that and pause again. So the next thing would be, how will we evaluate that? So some of you may have come to this kind of we steps approach. You don't have to remember what all those stand for, but the idea is, well, what's the wider picture? What about time? What about numbers, scale? Those sort of things that we're looking at. How could you evaluate these 2 points? Be safe. Explain your evaluation, that should say. And it's safer to evaluate twice. I want you to maybe really try and push yourself harder on evaluations. This is often where students fail, and maybe more focus needs to be done. Here's my clue. If you look at the wider picture and equitable, who wins, who loses, what would you say in looking at those 2 points? This is what I said, so you can have a read there. So I said that. The fact that one of the groups rose, why might that have been? It might be some other things were going on in the housing market. Try it again for the other one. And this time I thought about numbers, time, maybe wider impact. Again, so a pause here, and you might want to have a go at that. And this again is what I did. So you can see I've had a go at picking up 1E plus another E. The mark scheme actually had this one, so this is a different one you could use equally. I've just the mark schemes is interpreting it. So have a look carefully there. Pause here if you're happy with those evaluations. Okay, and then if you look at it, if we were to pull that all together, that is what I would have created as a possible answer. Okay, so again, you might want to pause here and have a look at this carefully. So if I pause on that one, and I will pause on that one, and I will pause at that point to answer that phone. So, okay, hope that helps. We'll have a look at 10C and 10D in the next clip.